Okay, so in this video, we're going to have a look at how you can print from Remote Pro using Breeze Hub. Now, this offers a different way of printing using a watch folder method that simplifies the setup in some respects when you're using multiple profiles and printing or outputting to different printer types or different paper sizes. It also means that you can just set a pixel dimension for your output size in Remote Pro rather than having to select a paper size through your printer driver, which you have to do when you print via the normal methods. So this is an alternative way that offers some benefits. And another one of those benefits is that you can have your printer far away from your photo booth running on a separate PC, and you can sync images across using Dropbox and pick them up for print on the other side of the room or other side of the world for that matter by using Breeze Hub. Now, you could also, of course, do this with hot folder prints, but there's more flexibility with Breeze Hub, and there's no extra cost because it's included with your Remote Pro license from version 3.315 and version 2 of Breeze Hub. But the biggest benefit of using Breeze Hub over hot folder prints is that it will completely honor any reprint and reprint quantities, whereas hot folder prints doesn't do that. So it is more tightly integrated. Plus, there's some other little tools in Breeze Hub that we've added that might be of use as well, such as a Breeze Cloud Uploader and a few other things. So let's have a look at how we set this up for Remote Pro. So first of all, we'll come into Remote Pro and see how a basic setup will work. So I'll come into File, Photo Booth Settings, and the first thing we want to do is make sure that our output is set to JPEG only and that we don't have it set to print. So this can also be used as a way just to create a digital copy. Previously, you would have to select your output size with the printer through the printer driver, but that could be problematic if the printer wasn't connected to the PC or you didn't have the driver installed. So this allows you to come into your settings here and set a custom print layout size of any dimensions that you want, and that is then reflected in your print layouts like this. So if we go ahead just as an example and we set this to 1800 by 1800, we would have a square canvas to work with. But we'll put that back to 1800 by 1200, which is roughly a 6 by 4 image. Now we'll come back to this, but you can set a printer ID, which will determine which printer you're going to print to if it's not the default. And there's an option there for duplex printing, which we'll look at in a separate video. So we've got the basics set up within Remote Pro, and then we'll jump over to Breeze Hub. Now, Breeze Hub is just picking up a watch folder. So you'll need to just take note of in Remote Pro where your images are saving. So at the moment, I've just got that saving into a test events folder on my desktop. So just copy that or take note of that. And then we'll have a look in Breeze Hub. If we come into File Preferences, so we're not using this as a sync server. So Breeze Hub is typically used with our iPad app as a way to sync images off the iPad onto a PC for printing or further processing. We're just doing it as a watch folder, so we don't need this enabled at all. We can ignore this section altogether. So we'll come into downloads and printing. What we are going to use is set our watch folder for prints. And so that will be the folder where we are saving our images from in Remote Pro. And this will scan subfolders as well. So it doesn't matter if you've got a multi-level sort of setup for where your images are kept. So there's a few options here. Obviously, you want to make sure you've got the print photos option enabled. I'm using resize prints to fill page and auto bleed because I've set a digital size of 1800 by 1200, but the RX1 will print 1844 by 1240 pixels. So this will just ensure that it's all sized correctly. So we have that set, then we'll come into File, Printer Setup, and we want to set up our default printer. So this is the printer that's going to be used if we haven't set a printer ID in the profile. So in this case, I'm using the DS RX1 copy 3, but you would select whatever other printer you'd normally be using. I've got my paper size set, and it's a 6 by 4. We're not doing strips. I just need to disable that option there. So I've got that set now as my default, so I can go ahead and close that and then come back into Remote Pro and we can run a session and see what happens. So I'm just going to go and do a single image here. Okay, so we've got our print confirmation screen set up. So I'm just going to print 2 copies here. You can hear the printer kick in and it's going to run me off 2 6x4 images. So while that's happening, you can see here in the log that it's picked up the files here. So it's looking at the XML file from Remote Pro, pulling the data from that to print the image. The folder that you're pointing to has to contain the XML files along with the print layout, the folder that contains the print images. So it won't just print from a folder of images, it's got to have the XML file that Breeze generates. So that is a folder that's going to look something like that with all these XML files in it. So that went ahead and printed off the 2 copies just as we needed. So let's have a look at how we set up for a 6x2 strip in the same event that we've got the 6x4. So we'll come back into our photo booth settings. So we've got 2 profiles. We've got one profile for our 6x4 and a second profile for our 6x2, which is profile 2. So I'm going to open that one up. So again, the output is set to JPEG copy only, and the print layout is designed as a strip like this. And you can see when we jump into our settings that we have the print layout size set as 1200 by 1800 to portrait orientation. I've then set a printer ID of 6x2. Now this can be anything you want, but it's just a way to identify the printer that you want to print to. So we're going to go ahead in Breeze Hub, and we're going to some file, printer setup, and we're going to make sure that our filter here for printer 2 is set to 6x2. So that needs to match whatever we enter here. So essentially the profile is going to say when it prints, we're looking for a printer that is called 6x2, and that's where this is set. So any printer that is called 6x2 here will be used. If no printer ID is set, then it will fall back to the default printer here. You can have up to 3 different printers here. So if you're doing 6x4, 6x2s, and a 6x8, you could set up a 6x8 printer here, and you could set your ID here to 6x8, and it would then send the print to that printer instead. But this could also be a completely different printer. So you could be printing normal photos and stickers, and then you might call this one sticker. And as long as your profile is also set, the printer ID is set to sticker, then it will print to that sticker printer instead of your normal photo one. So let's just jump in and finish up the setup for printer number 2 here. So it's the same actual printer. We just want to enable the 2-inch cut on this one. We'll check that it is enabled. It's not. So we'll go ahead and enable that one. And we'll save that, close that, and then we can run a session in Remote Pro, taking 3 photos to see how we go. I'll take the first picture, second, and third. All right, so I've got our strip layout here. I'm just going to print 1 copy. Hear the printer kick in, and we're going to have a look in the log here that has picked up that session there. And we're going to get 1 print. So there we go. So that's the basic setup of using Breeze Hub to print. Now, like I said, you definitely can just use printing the normal way, which is to set this back to print and save, and then in your layout, you can set your printer here. But I find particularly when you're working with multiple profiles, it is a lot easier just to set everything through the custom print layout size here. Oops, set that to that, because then you don't have to worry about your setup of the printer as you're doing that. You can just handle that one time through here. And then if you need to switch printers around, or you've plugged it in and unplugged it and it's come back as a different printer name, which sometimes happens in Windows, then it's a lot easier just to have to change it once here rather than going through each profile and updating it. So that's the basics of it. If you have any questions, just jump into the comments and let me know.